a lot with bamboo right now in kind of research phase only, where we are studying a lot of fungus that comes on bamboo, yellow, green, orange, पता नहीं कौन से color के आते हैं, and reading about them. Uh, but I realized that as architects, our knowledge to do with biodiversity is so less that the only thing that I could recognize in the fungus was the color, and whether that is harmful, not harmful, poisonous, not poisonous, I don't know. And from the time I started reading, even there is like disputes between architects about the fungus and the fungal growth that happens. And it's not only restricted to fungus. There was another discussion with Anudnya on the same group. I don't know whether Anudnya is on the call, about rodents. And there are so many different types of rodents that get attracted to mud structures, especially for various reasons. And Anudnya seemed to have cracked the cracked the design, where she says that it's a cob structure, adobe structure, in fact, and there is no rodent attack, absolutely, in spite of it being shut for so many months. So we were just curious to know what that is all about. So that was another trigger for this discussion to happen. And the third trigger was termites, basically, and bats, and all these things that affect. So termite ka bhi ek, I'll just tell you. So once we were designing for our clients, so we generally design on site. So we go to the client and design. This particular structure was in the Trambakeshwar Taluka, and we were sitting on, the structure is a mud structure, and we are designing another mud structure, basically. So the floor was a mud floor, cow dung floor. So we were sitting late in the night and designing on our tracing papers, gateways. We had some papers, and we slept off. The next morning, we woke up. Our papers were eaten up by termites in one night. Okay. We just started observing if there is any termite attack on the wooden frames, the wooden roof of the structure, but it was not so. The wood was completely there. It was not attacked by termites. And then these termites, so we kept the papers again for the next night to observe what happens. We just observed that these were a different kind of termites. They were, I think, red termites. I'm not very sure. They were definitely, color was red, but they were not the white scary termites that we see on wood. And apparently, what I read was these termites don't affect the wood. They affect softer matter which has cellulose like paper. So there are so many things that we just start getting scared about. One more thing was, there no similar thing, that there were borers in bamboo that we were anyways researching on, so we could figure out they were borers, and they were not attacking the wood that was there around. But the villagers just told us that this is termite, sub mardo, everybody then starts blaming the technology, right? Because something is happening to a part of the technology, like some biodiversity, some species is affecting it. But then the villagers will start, questioning everything that you do. The client will, unless the client is very good, they will start questioning anything that you do. Then there are snakes, scorpions. The other day, one client of mine called that we had designed a very fancy handle, like a round handle, and he is like, "कि अरे तुझे handle में," I'll just talk in Marathi. Anyways, I'll talk in Hindi. कि आपके handle, fancy handle में सांप आके बैठा है, अभी मैं क्या करूं? So again, thankfully, this client is a Sarpamitra. He's a wildlifer specialized in snakes. So he could handle the snake. It was a wolf snake, non-poisonous. But as architects, I don't know how much aware we are to biodiversity, and how much we should be aware to biodiversity. That also is a question. And how to deal with it when we are designing, how to coexist, so to say, when we are designing with biodiversity, especially with materials that we are sharing with the biodiversity. It is not like cement where we are creating an isolated environment. We are actually looking at materials which share the same stage with all the elements that live around you. So how to work with them? That is the question, I think, of this forum. I would end here. If Pratik wants to add anything, then that.
I would like to add one story about our village, where right now Shardul told about the termite and the way we get scared about termite, and we always try to inject a lot of chemical inside the foundation and try to kill all the termite. But I would really like to tell this particular story. In our village, they always build a house with the central wooden pole. There is a post, and they call that post as a Devasa Kham, which is a god's post. And whenever what happened, whenever they put that particular post, they put it in the ground. It's like inside the ground it is 5 feet, and above the ground around 9 feet or 8 feet as per the height of the house. So the only exposed part, which is shaved properly in the square, and the part below the ground, which is a complete wooden block, and they put it. And usually, what happens that every tribal person knows that it will get attacked by the termite, but they never put any kind of a chemical over there. They don't put any rock hail or something like that. They let the termite eat that particular coal. But the thing is, the process is so slow that termite takes almost 20 to 25 years to reach the core of that particular wood. Until then, how now what the process happens, the moment it is eaten by termite completely, the actually that particular post sunk little bit in the ground, and you see a gap between the upper beam, your wooden beam, and between the pole. And the moment that particular thing happens, the tribal people says that now we have to rebuild our house, and they dismantle everything. They keep that pole out.
Wow.
They take that particular post to the forest, and they give it to the forest. Now termite should eat it completely. And after that, they cut one tree from the forest. They take it home. They again do the same process, and they put it over there. Now what happened, when they cut the tree over there, they also, the particular person plant one more tree over there, and they put it over there.
Wow.
So yeah, he is out of network, I think. But yeah, this is one story where we can learn from our
Hello,
our ancestors about
hello.
प्रतीक तुझा कट झाला मध्ये तर मी कंटिन्यू करतोय about
Oh, sorry,
what to
sorry.
do
मला ते
with
नेट माझं हे
biodiversity.
झालं.
Yeah, about what to do with biodiversity, one of the ways to coexist, so to say. But my question comes also from practice perspective, about educating the client about all these things, because we generally tell our clients ki, you will have rodent attack, you will have insects coming in your house and all of that. If you go for mud, then this is a given, that is something that we do. But I just wanted to know if everybody does that, or is there a way around, or we have to then develop systems like the tribals where after 20-25 years, you just dismantle and let the biodiversity take over, and then you kind of have to redo certain parts or remake certain parts or something like that. So yeah, that's like another question for discussion, debate, analysis. Yeah, I think we both are pretty much done.
Yeah. So, anybody wants to say something? Because this is really a practical
Yeah, hi. This
problem, you
is
know. Yeah.
hi. This is Malak Singh, and Pratik. You can just add to that story about the central pole, and that they also in the tribal buildings that these poles are also different wood. They are not the same wood you use for a beam or a rafter or a plank.
Yes, yes, yes,
So you use for the pole, you use a particular species of acacia, which is basically double the strength of teak. So the time taken to eat that is also longer than. So its hardness is very good, and it's basically the kind of wood which the the कसाईला काय म्हणतात ह्याच्यामध्ये butchers
Hmm.
use to cut wood to cut the meat on. So that is the acacia species of which for
Acacia,
which they
yeah.
take for the poles for the columns. So they also select wood for the right wood for the right purpose. So that also prolongs the life of the thing with respect to this kind of biodiverse this thing. So selective, choosing. So for the upper members, you need woods which are good in tensile quality or different kind of wood. So why choose the same wood for the entire building? That's another thing which can save you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's really becomes kind of a challenge or kind of a task how we really educate our clients, for whom we are constructing these natural buildings. But I personally, feel I am working on a project in area called Tamini near Pune, and there is a huge diversity in vegetation. It's a huge diversity. It's a hotspot biodiversity hotspot region. So when I was talking to people in that area, people who come from outside, and want to build something in that area, which also has already has its diversity, and I think it is only because of lack of knowledge people have some weird kind of a fear about many things which come in front of them, something as new, like as Shardul was mentioning, if it is a termite and if we categorize all termites in one under one name, and we feel termites are dangerous for our structure, and without knowing what kind of a termite and what type of that termite is, and we just want to kill it and keep it away from our structures. So but we have to have something, some basic knowledge by which we can really accommodate them in our design. Not everything, but many things. Like, it's only awareness through knowledge which is possible. And before educating talking about educating our clients, we ourselves has to have that kind of that level of research and knowledge which we can get lot of it from these tribal people, because that's the one thing I realize, like in case of planting trees, why monoculture is increasing a lot, because if we talk to people कि अरे plantation करना है, तो people know hardly 4 5 species, and they have very specific way approach कि which are useful to us, हमारे फायदे में कौन सा फल देगा, कौन सा अच्छा दिखेगा. They have only 2 criterias, so they don't focus on diversity of it. So I'm working on a project where I'm trying to educate people by telling, कोई आता है बंदा और कहता है कि अरे सर ये पेड़ कांटे वाला है, खराब दिख रहा है, इसको निकाल देते हैं. सो आई एम ट्राइंग टू टेल देम कि इसको मत काटो. तो वो बोलेंगे नहीं, क्यों काटेंगे, क्यों नहीं काटेंगे, हम इसको निकाल देते, इसके बदले में देर इज अ कन्वीनियंट अप्रोच की लॉ ऑफ कंपनसेशन, कि इसको एक को उखाड़ देते और दो और लगा देते, क्या फर्क पड़ता है. सो रादर देन टेलिंग देम कि इसको कट मत करो, इफ आई टेल देम कि अरे ये पेड़ का ये बॉटनिकल नेम है, ये लोकल नेम है, इसका ये रोल होता है इस रीजन में इन्वायरमेंटली, and suddenly with all that information he start getting attached to that tree emotionally, and then he don't want to cut it. So it is only awareness through knowledge which I think is possible. uh, I think this is what I feel and wanted to mention. Yeah, Varun.
A very interesting discussion. Thank you for bringing this topic up. I hope you can hear me here.
Yeah.
So, these, see, at the core of these problems over the last decade, I've kind of come to just look at it in terms of three simple aspects. One, the first is something called maintainability. That in these modern kind of buildings where we are using methods and materials that only exist if they are maintainable or a client can maintain them, otherwise they don't, because it's at the center of its heart in a vernacular setting is a weekly or a monthly maintainability. In terms of design of the application of these techniques or methods is observability, where are we using these elements or components or whatever we call where clients can actually observe them regularly. Because in vernacular settings, the observability is very high. People do have uh, objects and activities and several things associated with it. And finally, the third aspect from these both that puts it apart is, as you said, no coexistence. So I remember this village near Nampally, near Telangana, where there were a lot of wattle and dog houses. And specifically in one of the house, I was very surprised to see that in their 20 by 12 kind of a space, almost a quarter of their space was occupied by a termite hill that was growing inside. And termites were there inside the house. So they had made, that was one of the big enlightening moments where they made the problem the solution, and they converted the termite hill as their puja room, or they were offering milk. And they also have stories that frogs and snakes have entered, and they have converted it into a puja room, the termite hill inside the house. uh, then Didi contractor was talking about this, that why would actually a termite, even Amel Kadik, my master Andres also talks about this, that why would a termite actually want to penetrate so many layers of man-made uh, chemical mediums uh, to just get to simple food. So you can just imagine from the perspective of a termite that it is having to take so much effort to get food. So, in permaculture terms, it is to make the problem the solution. When there is an energy that nature is guiding you to, saying that I will do this work of breaking down wood, and that is my job, that is the purpose of my existence. It is a designer's role to use that energy and maybe guide it to a compost pit or some other design process where the role of the termite is actually integrated in your life. So these are the three kind of takes in general that I've been kind of thinking on this. And it's always evident in vernacular architecture where the termite does have a role in a very large ecosystem of things where several of these elements that come as a part of the ecosystem are the very gods that we worship, whether it is a snake or a frog or a bird, and they are necessary, in fact, for the functioning of all of this. So that is all that I would like to add. Thank you.
So that's a very interesting perspective, Varun. I should appreciate it. Like channelizing the energy which is already existing and which we otherwise, take it in a negative sense or as a problem. But looking at it to some positive and trying to channelize it. Like बच्चा बहुत मस्ती करता है तो उसको स्पोर्ट्स में डाल दो काइंड ऑफ अप्रोच कि उसकी एनर्जी वी हैव टू चैनलाइज द एनर्जी इन द राइट डायरेक्शन ओरिएंटेड इन द राइट डायरेक्शन. But it's a lot of detailing kind of a thing, I think. A lot of architectural detailing kind of a thing. And we really need to have some expert, like, who works in this field.
See, all of us, we are actually, in a very strange zone, because I keep telling my students as well, if vernacular architecture and the circle of life is considered the number zero, and the most development oriented, forward thinking client as one, we are neither zero nor are we one, and we are always trying to guide a client towards zero. We ourselves are walking towards zero, but we can never get there, and therefore the buildings that we design can never get there either. As Heidegger says, a client can only inhabit a space that he is capable of living, and he can only build what he is capable of building. So, in while our efforts are very futile, in terms of guiding a client towards a certain building. I think we are only, making trials of doing this midway, where we have a series of modern components that are associated with one, and a series of vernacular components that are associated with zero, and it is the design is finally a weighted average of something, and which doesn't work. It is neither zero nor one, and it is very surprising, the space that we are in. Uh, and they don't go together clearly, because one breathes and one doesn't, one lives and one is dead, and how can we mix all of that, isn't it? So unless we are all like, I'm very envious of Design Jatra, because I hear from my wife Namrata how they are in almost a zero setting, and they are learning from the vernacular, and I've been trying so hard to get to zero, and actually break all these strings and go to a village and just live there. uh, it has been mostly that, but it is very hard to. I mean, it's a long journey yet, I would say. And we're just learning. We're just learning.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
that's really true, Pratik. When I visited your place on my bike last year, if you remember, yeah, I had the same feeling, similar feeling.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
anybody?
but I will just add to this. We are also walking towards the zero. I think a lot of these questions are triggered because we are somewhere in between. And yes, like Varun said, it's a very nice way to put it. Like there is zero and there is one, and both of them don't go together that well. And we are somewhere in between. Our clients are somewhere in between, and that is where the conflict is. And the way to, I don't know there is, if there is a way to resolve the conflict or no, but probably um, I would like to ask Varun something, because comes from experience of permaculture also. Uh, because because very similar experience from the people who I have heard about permaculture, and in general natural farming, where they tell, if there are rats, then you need to analyze the root cause of the problem, because there are no snakes and whatever. And because, like you're saying, I completely agree that if a termite is having to go through so much of effort to kind of penetrate so many layers of man-made protection, that you need to really question the ecology around your site more than the termite itself, and provide for the termite to survive in a coexisting way. But it is such a difficult project to handle. Like, I'll just give you one example, that, one of my clients who also does permaculture, she has a rat problem. So she started doing something very similar, started planting sacrificial crops. Okay, she started planting crops which the rat would be attracted more than the rice that she was planting, for example. What happened eventually, now she owns a plot of land which is around 5 acres, who is doing permaculture, and around the plot completely nobody is doing permaculture, right? So she definitely planted the sacrificial crop. 1 year it worked. The second year, these rats must have gone to all the surrounding fields and told, because rats, I think, have intergenerational intelligence. They must have told that, there is food here when everything around is extinguished. So, idhar jane ka, that's our hotel. So, the second year, the rats ate the sacrificial crops and sacrificed all the crops that were growing. Won't that happen with termites also? I'm really scared. Like, the first uh, thing, or the first instinct for me also was something very similar, that, divert the termites to some place where it is for them, like it, you devote a place for them on the side, because like you said, biodiversity and termites have a very important role in biodiversity. And it is not only about termites, you can talk like this about snakes, you can talk like this about bats, you can talk like this about rats, everything that lives around us. We If we provide for them, but all of this work in a larger ecological cycle. The reason why rice doesn't get attacked by rats in the western coastal belt is probably because everybody plants rice at the same time. If somebody starts planting rice in the wrong season, then rats do attack that particular thing. So uh, if the problem also is probably there is this one tending towards zero building amongst a lot of buildings which are probably one around it. And because these biological elements or biosphere elements don't get enough shelter in the buildings around, that is where this building becomes the target. So that is also something that I've observed over whatever 2 3 sites, that this element was very strong, especially in areas where there is huge biodiversity around. It doesn't really affect so much, but especially in areas like I said, when there's 5 acres of permaculture farm in an otherwise barren landscape, this factor is like interesting, like it gets really interesting to observe how it works. What do you have to say about it, Varun?
From the permaculture perspective, Shardul, there are two aspects. One is that the whole idea of permaculture is that humans should do nothing. that nature, that nature has its own forces, and we are only using nature's forces uh, to diversify processes. And the purpose of nature is only to
दादा माझा
diversify
एक वेबिनार चालू आहे रे, मी फोन करू
everything.
तुला थोड्या वेळाने.
It will diversify participants. It will also diversify processes. That there are multiple things that are observable by humans and multiple things that are even non-observable. In fact, many things that are not even understandable by human beings. So that is the role of nature in general, to confuse. And the second aspect is that everything grows. It means everything has a role, and it is just for us to just surrender to its roles. That is according to the permaculture perspective, that everything does have a role to play, and our limitation is in our capacity to observe and understand and use it. So a good designer is less of a designer and more of an observer. It takes 99% observation and 1% design to actually practice permaculture. So it really 99% observation. And and uh, as hard as it sounds, uh, it is equally hard to get educated in that way. We are really educated as designers, and I don't know, somehow our very basic tenets of where we start practicing architecture from the client brief itself, our hands are tied, and we just have to follow a brief for survival. And and this is just a consequence of a brief that is not on the lines of what nature says. So I'm sorry. Yes, yes.
I could hear Namrata's evil laughter in the background.
No,
Yeah.
because we just came back from one client meeting this afternoon where I was yelling at a client. Uh, and the other day, I was yelling at another client and she started crying. But you see, I mean, I don't think our designers who are close to one have to face this challenge, because
Yeah,
they are
they
just
don't.
laughing with the client. And as soon as I am trying to apply this force of bringing them from one towards zero, there is a conflict. And there is a conflict not just between me and the client. There's a client conflict between the client's wife, the client's society, me and the client, me and my workers and the materials and nature, the nature and the elements, and everything is in conflict. So I'm on the wrong project, is what Namrata says. Yes, I am on the wrong project, but then I've accepted that design brief, and we are basically in this situational conflict. And in nature, this conflict is not seen as conflict; it is just seen as a part of the process, which nobody wants to accept.
Right. Yo, wish Namrata belated happy birthday, by the way. I forgot to call her yesterday.
Oh, hi. Hi, Namrata. Happy belated birthday.
Say thanks.
Okay. Uh, Anybody wants to add in something? Hi, Namrata.
Thank
Happy
you. Thank you
belated
so
birthday.
much. Right.
Uh, so, Dhruva wants to say
Yeah,
something on this?
yeah. I just wanted to add a couple of points in the discussion. Firstly, also what Shardul started off saying about we not knowing a lot about the biodiversity in our houses as of now. And I think that is definitely a first step that I, as a designer or an architect, would like to take. Because having said all, considering all the facts that even Varun put forth so elaborately about the three aspects that he discussed, but also at the same time we must also, there's a practical aspect to it in the sense that as an architect you are designing the space for someone else to live for the entire life. So unless you are 100% sure about a certain consequences of the decisions you take, it must be very difficult to take those decisions unless we have the knowledge, is something that I feel. Which is why I think even in the building, in the natural building sector till today, the major strategy has been just to keep away the biodiversity so that there's lesser conflict, lesser interactions means lesser conflicts with the users. So that has been something that is maybe oversimplified and needs more knowledge and more awareness to work on. So I definitely agree that the first step would be to locally, wherever we are practicing, if we can start identifying the kinds of what regularly is termed as pests in our house, for example, or the biodiversity in the house. That would definitely help us. Regarding termites specifically, some experiences we have had, and also some talks with an expert that I had. That termites usually do. It's not just wood that they prefer, or paper or cellulose in general, but moisture is a very key element in attracting termites. So I really love the idea of, that, say, for example, Varun initially put forward that if what if a compost pit is somewhere where the termites could be redirected to, because again, moisture would definitely be an important aspect in something like compost versus your a wall or a column, as opposed to so the termites then would not take those many that much trouble of getting into your house, and would just be attracted to perhaps a compost pit near your house. Secondly, also, we have seen that seasoned timber, however difficult it is to obtain, would definitely help in this aspect particularly, because usually the termites, in my experience, they attack the xylem and the phloem, or just the sap that is in the wood. So lesser
The
it is, I
sapwood, yeah.
think, that would deter them from coming. I'm not saying it's a foolproof kind of a way. Uh, Secondly, also just an experience we had in Bhor near Pune, where we were building. where we had bamboo woven mats on as a roofing underlay by the locals there. And in the first season, it took a lot of fungus, and we did consider that maybe in the second season it may not come back. But there are certain other aspects that one needs to consider. For example, we came to know that the client's son is allergic to spores from the fungi. So even such aspects which may not be considered, because it's a family you are designing for. The health is obviously a key concern when you do the design. So I think even when we speak of biodiversity, certain health issues associated with biodiversity have to be researched on before taking a conscious call about coexisting or keeping them away, whatever we decide. Secondly, the types of rodents, which very like Shardul rightly put that. For example, we are quite successful in keeping away the larger rodents or the larger mice or rats that we call. But in this particular project, the same project in Bor, it's located inside a forest where there are very small jungle rats currently. So whatever, so unless you want to keep them away by taking due a lot of care to seal off the house completely and make sure at least the initial a foot or a foot and a half is a bit difficult for them to pour through by maybe using something like lime instead of mud for just that part of the construction. But then it is very difficult to avoid certain things like this. So something that struck me afterwards was when like in natural farming there is also a concept of mitra kida, or beneficial pests or beneficial microorganisms you could call, or insects, who will help in combating with these other pests of, that we do not want conflicts with. So it will be interesting to even just to explore if this concept can be used in the construction sector or in natural building sector as well, to find out if we do not want to have certain species coming in, what kind of species which are not harmful for the users or not considered as pests could be introduced in the system. Of course, them being local and them being like locally available in the region, but that could also be looked at. So I think insects or creatures like spiders and lizards, for example, would definitely play a key role in such scenarios. And just to end with, when because we started off speaking about fungus, I know of an expert called Mr. Kiran Randive. He's also based in Maharashtra, working very much in the field of fungi, and especially Satyendra. He's an expert in the entire Tamini area.
Oh,
So we can even consult with him, or jointly if we have some images of certain fungi, or we know of certain fungi which commonly affect the build structures, especially mud or timber that we use. We can definitely consult experts like him to help us identify and then research more about the pros and cons, and if we can really coexist with this kind of biodiversity.
yeah.
Yeah.
May I say certain something, Dhruvang? Dhruvang, see, humans are incapable of identifying the diversity of species, whether it is termites or fungi. We only know that there are more than 2,000 type of termites, and we do not completely understand it, and we rarely can. If and fungi, it is even more. Just the number of fungi goes into a million. So where do we, these are all contextual, local. In fact, it might change even in a very square meter of the very house. So I don't personally think that this is the normal human tendency of identifying, categorizing, breaking it down, and finding a general solution per category and applying it across. and only using the problem to create more solutions, but actually creating more problems. So that isn't the permaculture way usually. So just to think about it, not to stop. I know there are several experts who will give contextual ideas, just like so many doctors who will give you contextual remedies. But just the yeah, yeah.
And at times no remedy really works. I agree with Varun, to an extent, because it's really very difficult, to identify everything. And like उंदीर झाले म्हणून मांजरी पाळायच्या, kind of a solution. Like you have rats, so you are having cats, and then at times, the cats are so many, like you don't have a solution to reduce the number of cats. So yeah, I always feel, just yeah, we natural builders have to have a very, sometimes, very diplomatic kind of an approach to our clients. We just are trying to give them a solution. We talk about coexistence, but I feel, it is only minimalize, how we can minimalize the consumption of resources, and learn to be with the surrounding, and if not harm it completely, or sometimes, we just try to be with it as it comes. So I think it is only minimalizing consumption of resources is one thing I always felt, and understanding surrounding to an extent where we always have a limitation, like Varun said, and like permaculture, just leave it, uh, on its own. तो वो देख लेगा. Sometimes, but not every client you can convince this kind of a philosophy. So ठीक है, I always do it this way. I try to sense the level of sensitivity my client has. If he is already into some natural farming, and then he is mentally prepared or inspired with this kind of philosophies, then it a bit one step ahead. I can give him philosophical thought about coexistence and natural building and natural living. But if a client comes from between 0 to 1 and more towards 1, then I have to keep little more practical approach, like Dhruvang is saying. So it also depends in which area we are working with, what level of client our like what level of sensitivity our client has, awareness he has, and his level of acceptance also, really to experience the coexistence or practice coexisting with the nature. This is what I feel.
No, I do agree to what you and what even Varun said, that it might not be possible to know everything about the biodiversity, because there being so much biodiversity in so little space also. But also, I feel as personally as an architect, I don't feel it's just about convincing the client about everything. I also feel that because I do not have experience in most of the things that I like. Frankly, I recommend, for example, because I myself currently am not living in a natural house, for example. So I would not have the experience to back up the philosophy that I might share with the client. And I feel it's morally not right on my part to even just say that it's okay if say some mice come in, but if tomorrow if I say a crate follows that mouse in the house and bites someone in the family, I would consider myself responsible for that. So I feel as an architect, I think health and safety are something that is non-negotiable, and which is exactly why I should know about certain common species. Like, for example, I should know about the crate, which is why I would probably design for sleeping arrangements such that the crate would not be easily attracted to people sleeping on the floor easily, or something. Just an example. So design would come in after. I'm sure, like Varun said, it's a never-ending process of gaining that knowledge or having that awareness in ourselves. but I feel that shouldn't be the reason of not starting also. So I feel it's a long journey, but it will, the more we are exposed to, the more we know about these common biodiversity that we can see in our structures, the more design uh, design solutions or even design thoughts during at the design level we can put in the houses that we build.
Yeah,
Uh,
I kind of agree and resonate to Dhruvang. Uh, it's like like I mean there are so many types of termites. I know that, but I should not resort to chemical when I see a termite, or neither should my client do that. So a similar situation for the crate. Like a lot of times what happens in our villages over here is that they see a wolf snake which looks exactly like a crate, and they would kill the wolf snake thinking that it's a crate. I'm not saying that the crate should be killed, but a little bit of awareness of what to do when there is a crate, because crate is very gentle, like it's not a ferocious snake, but wolf snake is. So they see the veracity, they see the ferocity of the snake, and they get really worried about it and kill it off, right? But the crate is not that way. So a little bit of knowledge from whoever is an expert in these particular, like Dhruang mentioned, Mr. Randiva, I have actually read about his study as well, and he can be a very good resource person to start with. And also, I know somebody who works with termites. I've been meaning to speak to that person since quite some time now. And there might be experts on snakes, there might be experts on bats and other things. And we can definitely, the most common ones, and there are some problems we don't know because we are complete laymen. At least I am a complete layman in that field. And like Dhruang said, like when it comes to the health of the people living in the buildings, then I also might think that I should know that this particular thing I should have thought about. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि बंदा floor पे सो रहा है, and because there is a certain kind of design, a crate bites, and then I might find myself responsible, like Duan said. So is there a way in which we can avoid that? Also scorpions, because that's one more very interesting species, and how people deal with that is also very interesting. So we should probably study that.
uh,
So we could,
Yeah,
yeah, I
when
would.
I visited Pratik, I really liked his, presentation he was giving to his students. He was conducting some workshop, right, Pratik? When I visited your place, so that day he was giving a presentation, and he was
Yes, yes.
sharing, some slides from these Warli paintings, and I found it very interesting because, we try to find a solution from our resources, but most of the resources, many times they are available in local people. They have a lot of knowledge, about how to live safely in their region. Dhruva, if you're talking about Velle, so I'm working on a project in Velle itself, and I was just talking with few people who are, who worked on traditional or structures, their vernacular architecture, the local architecture with local material and local construction techniques, and most of the time they have enough knowledge, uh, to which can give a a kind of a solution to our problems, or they can teach us lot many things. So that is something, that knowledge base. I think if we can all, working in different regions, can collect this knowledge, document it, and then prepare kind of a documentation which may be help in, and they are very region specific. If I'm working in Mandavgarh, Madhya Pradesh, they have different ways to deal with termites, and if you're working in Villa, they have different ways to deal with termite, if you take termite only as a subject. And every region, if I'm working in this Gadchiroli area, they have some very interesting ways to deal with it. So this local knowledge is something which we really need to revive and conserve, because they have most of the solutions for what we call as a problem. Of course, they have different expectations and different ideas about their houses and they have different expectations from their structures also. So yeah, but I think this is something which can give us a lot of insight about how to keep or deal with our issues. What we Because rather than trying to find this solution directly from the consultants who practice, like Druvang rightly said, I stay in a three-bedroom apartment on 10th floor, and then I'm practicing natural building. So to experience that, I have to be in that area. So that ancient knowledge is something which we all should uh, take little more seriously. And I don't know, this is what I always feel.
Yeah, I really
What I
completely
feel
agree.
is
हाँ बोल प्रतीक.
okay. So it is really about the kind of lifestyle we have, because when we are actually working in this particular village, the villagers actually designed, or maybe by the traditional knowledge, whatever they have, it is a 1,000-year-old knowledge. The kind of coexist they make with all these things, like there are many subject came right now into the picture, like the crate, the rodents, the snakes, the fungus, and everything. And basically they actually try to deal with everything. For example, their cooking method, where they use chulas and the kind of smoke get generated in the house. Also, for example, the kind of compound wall where they use the dried sag leaves, teak wood leaves, and basically that teak leaves make a lot of noise. Okay, so anything which is climbing on that particular compound wall, or any animal try to get inside, with the noise you can make out, and that's the kind of indication for them. Also, they always have the hens and roosters around their house. Those, whenever they see a snake or any kind of animal, they just start making a lot of noise, and people came to know the dogs which they have, the cats they have, and entire this system which they have around them is actually balance it out everything. So the problem is not problem, but it is always a kind of a finding out ways towards it. And I think it's a part of a lifestyle. Means when I'm constructing a house for a client in, let's say, in an area, and when he has a kind of a, the barbed wire kind of a compound, and then we are trying to find out, oh, I want to live in this particular context, but these limitations I have. So educating them is sometimes difficult, I really don't know, but yeah, that is the whole point, wherever we tell them, it is about the lifestyle which you have. Okay, when you are going to into the context, either you can wear, let's say, if you are jumping into the ocean, you wear the oxygen mask and the suit which won't harm you or keep you alive, or otherwise just learn to swim.
uh,
Yeah, and I was just saying that I really completely agree to what Satyendra said before, that when I actually said experts, it's definitely local knowledge is something that should be the base. And but also from we have also found that going back and forth with what the local knowledge is, and what researchers or scientists in those fields say, tells us lot more, or enriches a lot more information about the local knowledge itself. For example, what Malak sir initially shared with us about acacia species being used for the central pole. While speaking to the locals, we might feel that, say, it's a good, it's very hard, it's termite resistant. But when you also look at, say, the properties of the acacia, and you find that it's great in compression and not so great in tension. So even you find other aspects to the same decision, that it makes so much more sense to have to use that as a post and make your structure efficient in that particular way. So I feel it can be a back and forth of both, in a way, that using
True.
local knowledge as the base, and then trying to analyze other aspects linked to it as well.
Agree, completely agree. So yeah, anybody wants to add anything into that? It's 5:45. Is I think Can we stop here today? For today, Shardul?
Probably we can stop with uh, something to do in the future. Maybe I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know whether it is.
First of all, I would like to thank Malak sir, Malak Singh sir. Thank you so much for joining this forum. Uh, Definitely we respect.
Thank you for having.
Yeah, and yeah, thanks to everyone. Uh, Yeah, about Shardul, as you said, like I was just thinking about one concept because we all are, working on various projects in, diverse circumstances and context and, conditions. So maybe, we can have one Friday meet in every month, and maybe someone will give a presentation of his project he's doing and share his experiences, and from his experience we all can learn something new. So I think that was a basic concept I had in my mind, which I wanted to share today with you all. So give me your opinion, like if you all are okay, and if we can conclude maybe second or first or third or fourth, whatever Friday, 4:30. If you all are okay with that, we can start these kind of sessions where, because we are into natural buildings and it's a field of doers, and we learn only from our experiences, and even though a lot of documentation is done every time, this natural building practice surprises us with something new, and हम कुछ करने जाते हैं क्रैक्स हो जाते हैं, फिर देन वी डू समथिंग, ट्राई समथिंग एल्स, एंड इट्स लाइक आई ऑलवेज गिव दिस एग्जांपल टू माय स्टूडेंट्स, ये रोटी बनाने का जो स्किल होता है ना, उसके जैसा, लाइक वर्किंग इन मिट्टी। तो घर में आटा भूनो, वो एक बार भुना हुआ आटा 10 लोगों को सेम आटे से रोटी बनाने को दो, हर एक की अलग पकेगी। और किसी को कितना भी स्पेसिफाई करो कि इतना आटा लो, इतना उसमें पानी मिलाओ, इतना नमक मिलाओ, मेजरमेंट लेके फिर भूनो, फिर भी वो रोटी अलग ही बनेगी। इट्स लाइक दैट, सो आई आई ऑलवेज फील, कि करो, बस करते रहो। सो वी ऑल आर वर्किंग एंड वी आर वर्किंग ऑन इंटरेस्टिंग प्रोजेक्ट, तो एक फ्राइडे रख सकते हैं हम लोग, इफ यू ऑल आर कंफर्टेबल विद दैट। हाँ प्रतीक।
Yeah, I feel that will be a good idea.
ओके।
The only thing is, we all have to adjust our schedules accordingly. But yeah, I think that's not a big task.
I think taking ahead from what Duang mentioned, we should alternate between us presenting work and experts talking. Experts, by experts they could be architects or whoever, local people, researchers, and we could kind of have like an alternative to and fro kind of a
Yeah,
discussion
yeah, that's a good idea.
where yes, one we can present and one we can just have experts who can, like for starters, like for example Kiran Randive sir can talk about fungi for that matter or something like that. There
Good.
could be experts who can talk about wood, experts who can talk about various species of timber, experts who can talk about soil. The other day, so my father-in-law is a structural engineer, very old, and he was talking about white mud and knows some researcher who has done research in white mud. So we could have people like that, because we all are here to learn as well, and of course learn from each other where we share our project. So we can have to and fro, like experts and experts, local people, and then us architects presenting. Maybe that could be a format. It could
Great, great, great.
enrich the discussion like that.
So, yeah, that's a good idea, Shadul. I think we can do that definitely. So, I think rather than thinking, for too much in long term, let's plan the next month event. Maybe Shardul, you can design that, and we'll just float that.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Hmm? So let's have one session first, and then let's see, how it goes naturally.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, what Shardul mentioned in his earlier when he was speaking earlier about Anunya, we were all thinking that we could she could present
Yes,
about. the rodents issue, and so,
तिला
so
पकडायचं I
even
guess.
along with the works, we can also think about certain elements like these that certain like whoever is presenting can
But I think
highlight.
Anudya mentioned that it was just a coincidence that no rodent came there.
No, no, sir, she's designed it for it. I don't think it's a
No, no, no.
coincidence.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So,
No, no, but this will be a really good idea. Means I,
yeah.
I agree to Dhruvan.
sure. No, good, good. So let's on our group maybe Shardul, you can just send some idea like whatever you feel. Maybe all of us can keep sharing that, and we'll just schedule one after another, and we'll
Yes.
have good enough time in between. One month is a good enough time to make arrangement, talking to people and making them available for our platform. So let's do that. Malak sir,
Yeah,
तुमचा
yeah,
काही
sure.
input?
Oh no, I sorry, I just joined this because I came to know about it. So I'm new to the discussion on this group. So I think it's a fantastic idea what you guys are doing, and it will surely add our collective knowledge. So fantastic. I mean, yeah, my full support
Thank you so much,
to
sir.
this. Yeah.
Varun, what
And
is
I
your
think
input? Sorry.
one more thing is like there are so many more people. I think we should open the group too.
Yeah, yeah, of course
Uh,
we can.
so I will just share some names on the chat so that we can add. There are so many young firms who are coming up who we should
Hmm.
open the group on
Yeah,
to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, just to let Malak sir know about it, like sir, when we started this group, we had one criteria, kept it as a criteria as such. Like at least one structure you should have done in natural building or some sustainable thing, and we did not keep it very open to general practicing people because we are architects and we have so much of a network in architectural fraternity. So
Mm-hmm.
so we just thought की it's better की कोणी एखादं तरी structure केलं असेल and if he joins the forum then the discussion becomes little relevant otherwise, and it should come from the experiences. That's what the thought behind it was ki if I have practiced something, I have some experience, and I learn from that experience and that share that experience. So it's a doers kind of a group. So that was the
Okay.
criteria. So
I'm
yeah,
sure if I was a student who or a young practitioner who has not done anything like this, would love to hack my way into your Google Meets because I would get to learn so much from all you guys doing gupshup about what you have done. Because it's like youngsters applying for a job and saying that the company asking you that do you have experience. If I don't get a job, where will I get the experience? So I think, I mean, I feel maybe it may be it's just a humble suggestion. I just stumbled upon your meeting.
no, no, it's
So,
fine.
that, young architects who have not built anything also should, be, I think,
Yeah,
allowed
I kind
to.
of agree to sir that the Google Meets and that even informal discussions could be really enriching. Like if I were a student, then I would
Hmm.
really like to hear Varun's take on things, Dhruvan's take on things, Malak sir's take on things, and maybe we should open the Google Meets to everyone. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
so.
we can do that. So next
So
time we'll keep it open for everyone. Google Meet.
yes,
Okay.
maybe Google Meet is not a good platform because it has limitation in terms of sharing and all of that. But we'll have to
Okay.
figure out a good platform in that sense. I don't know.
Okay. Let's see. I look into it, like what platform we can use better. But anyway, Shardul, we'll discuss it personally. About having a right platform or more
Hmm.
efficient platform. So Varun, you want to add something into it, or anybody else for that matter wants to add something, and we can conclude.
Anushri
No,
नाही आली
nothing.
काय?
नाही.
I don't know
Nothing
where
really.
she is.
Thank you so much. It was enlightening.
She's
Thank you.
there.
Thanks a lot, Varun. Uh, Anushri nahi ali, and the person who started this discussion, Tapas,
Tapas. He's working.
is not there on the group. So
Anushri is there in the chat.
Anushri
He,
is there?
Yeah, yeah, she's saying ahe
Yeah,
ahe.
yeah, yeah, I'm
She's
there.
there.
Oh,
I
hi
have.
Anushri. I think
I'm
Anushri
just
is there.
quietly listening. That's it. I'm much of a listener.
Yeah, That's really nice.
Anushri can be one of the first experts to talk about natural color.
Ah,
That's
right.
another thing that
Yeah.
What
we are
happened?
looking for. But
Anushri, I missed
anyway,
that workshop of yours you conducted,
Yeah,
but I would like to attend that in future. We had a talk
please.
on phone, but I really could
same
not
Yeah,
here.
attend it.
no worries. Maybe sometime soon.
Yeah, and I wish this COVID pandemic goes fast, and then we can really have a real meetup. So yeah, so I think we can conclude.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much, Malak sir. Thanks to you once again, and
Thank
thanks
you.
to
Thank
all
you.
of you. Yeah,
Thank you.
bye.
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 Thank you. Bye. Bye.